I think what's crazy is it's like, I said before, it's like, and it's true, it's like I like to post videos when I have like something from God. But it's almost kind of like the more we pour in, God pours out. You know what I mean? It's almost kind of like God will like give you like an opportunity to like do something, and it's like the more you do it, the more opportunity He gives you, the more He blesses you, the more, you know what I mean? Like He tells you like, hey, go buy that person a drink, you do, and it's like, but I think each person's led differently, like, and for me, I've always been like, kind of just if God told me to do something, then I just do it. My son said to me one time, he's like, um, why don't people perform miracles anymore? And I told him, I was like, it has a lot to do with like, people like not wanting to get out of the boat. Basically, like it's hard to like get out of your comfort zone sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of it's not very comfortable to always do that and be there, and it's kind of like it's like, but like you become comfortable, you become complacent. It's like I always pray this. I'm like, God, whatever you need me to do, whatever you need me to say, wherever you need me to go. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes like what God calls you for in the moment could be learning to rest. So sometimes it's like, and it can be different, like maybe eating better, like learning to pray more, just it can be something so small because like our life needs balance, it's like you need to have like time where you're, sitting with yourself. You need to have time where you're like pouring into yourself. You need to have time where you're working towards the things that are for you, you know what I mean? And sometimes that's, it could be like learning discipline, you know what I mean? Um and kind of like the thing that I got this time was I got this thought, and I believe it was from God, you know what I mean? Like a radio frequency, you know what I mean? Tapping into spirit, tapping into source, like the soul, like your soul is like, connected to God, and it's kind of like things will try and intercept it, to cause like static, which can cause stagnancy. Um, for the Bible even said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness. Um, we wrestle, like, that's why, the Bible said, pray for those who despitefully use you. And I think that, like, in situations where people come against you and you experience opposition, you've got to forgive and release because it's more for yourself, and I heard that in the past, and it's kind of like hard to believe at the time, but it's like it's very true. But like I say, like stagnancy, like it's kind of like because it's like almost like being in tune with God is like tapping into like a channel like on the radio, like and it's like if it's messed up, or back in the day, they still had this when I was a kid, like there was, and some people might still have this depending. There was like rabbit ears, and like you basically got a channel, and sometimes you had to adjust the little antennas on top of the TV. Sometimes you could put aluminum foil on there to kind of get it, and technology's gotten a lot better, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not, like you gotta program the channels now and everything. But it's like if you have something interfering with like your connection to God, connection to source, whether that be not making time to sit with yourself, not resting like you should, And sometimes, you know what I mean, like just taking time for yourself. And you know, the Bible, you know, said we wrestle not against flesh and blood, principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness. So like, you know, this is, you know, there's spiritual warfare in the world, you know, like that's why Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." Joshua, choose this day whom you'll serve, but as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. You know what I mean? That's why I've said in other videos, it's like, you know, whenever someone walks in the room, you feel their presence. It's like whatever you're feeding yourself, it's like people can feel that. You know what I mean? Like, and we've become to a place, like, people are like, well, she's not nice. And it's like, somebody can be really nice, but not, like, their intentions be wrong, their soul be whack. And I was having a conversation with someone, and it's like, I agree with it. It was like, you know, God cares more about your character. Which to me, I believe that's really true. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, if you're a real person, you know what I mean? And you're a sincere person, you're not always going to be nice. You know what I mean? The other day, this guy was like, "You acting like because you think you're cute." I'm like, I'm not acting like anything. I'm just me. You know what I mean? But you know, it's like, I always pray though too. It's like, God, guard my heart, bridle my tongue. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna like run into people and situations. You know what I mean? Well, it's like, even like Jesus, I think, ran into someone. It was like a boy or something, and it was like, and there was a or something, and it was like the person or the individual was full of demons, and he's like, "We are legion, for we are many," and they didn't want Jesus to cast them into the abyss, so he cast them in to the pigs. I believe it was Jesus. You know what I mean? And it's like, it literally, like, it's a spiritual battle that we're facing, you know? Speaking of, you know, Easter is, like, about to be coming up, you know? And, like, you know, for those who believe in that, you know, Jesus died, rose again. He went to hell, you know? He got crucified, went to hell, got keys to hell in the grave, and then rose. You know what I mean? On the third day. I've come to this conclusion too. There's no like coincidences. And the Bible says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind, and greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world." You know what I mean? "For yea, though I walk through the valley of a shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." But I got that analogy as like a radio. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, if you have things, they can kind of clog up the frequency. You know what I mean? Say you have too much memory on your phone, it's like it runs slow. You know what I mean? Or you don't have a lot of a very strong signal, you know, like your internet or your phone might be a slow process. You know? I lost my phone. You know what I mean? And it was like, I was able to get another one, and it was just very easy. But it's like, I feel like God used that as like an example of I was just like, he's like, it'll be fine. And it was like, I was able to get a phone for very cheap, and they were able just to kind of load my new phone on very simply. They didn't even have my new email or whatever, and it was just like such a simple process, you know what I mean? And it went a lot smoother than like that transitions happened in the past, You know what I mean? And I think it was just God's reminder of, like his favor. You know what I mean? And like, I think sometimes as people, we can psych ourselves out in situations. It looks like a mountain. You know what I mean? But the Bible says, say to the mountain to be removed, it'll be cast into the sea. It's like, I think that's why the story of the Valley of Dead Bones, I didn't remember who it was, but they were called to minister to the bones till, they came, they grew, came back alive, That's pretty interesting. I know for me too, it's like, I've done a lot of spiritual work, but it's like sometimes you learn and then it's like application. You know what I mean? And I think it's like, and that's a lot of like, I'm thankful for like a lot of people I listen to, like, and stuff like that. I watch videos, sometimes it's encouraging, sometimes it's good confirmation, sometimes it's good reminder. You know what I mean? I think it's like good for us to hold ourselves accountable, and it's good to like tune into others that do the same. You know what I mean? And sometimes, we're human. Sometimes you just need like a reminder. You know what I mean? But it's like when it's sometimes like, go through different seasons, but sometimes when it's like time for the rubber to meet the road, it's like, it's time, it's the application time. You know what I mean? But it's like, but each step of the way is very important. Like I've said in another video, it's like getting your recipes together. It's time to put that cookbook together, kind of thing. And it's like, that's why sometimes you just got to trust the process. I've thought this in the past too. It's like sometimes whenever God's leading us a certain direction, it's like sometimes like we feel like if we knew the time, I found this too, time's an illusion. You know what I mean? But it's like, time is of the essence as well. You know what I mean? We can't look at it like we can't squander. The Bible says we're supposed to be stewards of our time and stewards of our money and stewards of ourself. You know what I mean? That's another thing too. Remember that you are an investment. Like your mind, your emotions, your body. And I've said this in past too. It's like, I don't care what your beliefs are. It's like, I as a person, like, I love people. You know what I mean? I've also said this too. It's true. It's like, I love people, sometimes the nature of humans. You know what I mean? But I really do love people. That's what I've said in videos too. It's like, like even with whatever has happened with me with other people and situations, it's like I always pray. You know what I mean? But the Bible says, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans that I have for you of good and not of evil, plans to prosper you and a hope. You know what I mean? But just, kind of like, I like analogies too, but that's what I came up with, like, so I guess look at it like this. What maybe is intercepting your frequency as far as like your mind, your emotions? It's as important to take care of your body as your mind. So like what is some things that maybe that you need to improvise in, compromise, but don't compromise yourself as a person, you know what I mean? But it's like, I've done a lot of mental work, emotional work, and now it's like I've gotten to the point, it's like, I want to start working out, you know what I mean? Because I just do, I want to work on my body, you know what I mean? I've done a lot of internal work, I'm ready to do some external work, it's time for me, and otherwise to do, like, I invested in, so it's time for me to invest out on some things. But just each part of the process is important, your healing as important as your conquering. And look at it like this, if you're in the process of healing and you still feel very wounded, healing is the foundation for everything else. You know what I mean? Because I realize now, because like God's helped me heal my mind, my emotions, my spirit, and it's almost kind of like my vision and my expectation and my has expanded. Because I think sometimes we're limited because in ourselves, or we limitate ourselves. Some people have a fear of failing. I always had a fear of success. I remember being in like 8th grade or 7th grade, and me and this other girl, I was friends with her at the time, and my teacher said that me and her had the best grades. I stopped trying. I remember I was in elementary school, and like I went to a very small elementary school, 1st through 4th grade, and you got like an award. And my 4th grade year, because it was 1st through 3rd grade, they got separate awards in the 4th through the 6th grade. I read more books than like the 6th grade girl, and after that I really stopped trying. You know what I mean? I think I probably irritated my teachers sometimes, because my senior year of like high school, I didn't turn in my senior paper, and you're supposed to fail, and I didn't fail because I made 100% on all my papers. Someone said in a video, it's like, I'm very good at things coming to me naturally sometimes. So it's like, I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, and I've gotten a lot. I'm really good at it, and it's like, like I said, I'm really at that point where it's time to apply. You know what I mean? Because I've done a lot of work on my mental, my emotions. You know what I mean? Like staying focused. And so now it's like, you know, it's more of like the application time. You know what I mean? But it's like, if you're still in that healing time, don't be begrudging to that, because that is so important. And if all you did today was get up and made it through the day, that can be a lot. You know what I mean? Because there's always night before the dawn. And, sorrow may last for the night, but joy comes in the morning. You know what I mean? And I'm learning this too, and I'm getting better at it. I've done a lot of healing. I'm learning how to live and have fun again. Like, you know what I mean? Because in the past, I've been through a lot of things, and my idea of fun, I wasn't allowed to have I never really got a lot of fun in life, because I went through some traumatic things, and then I never really felt allowed to have fun, you know. Or I felt inhibited in a way because of the way I was raised, you know. Kind of like when you grow up in a household where you're made to feel like a parasite, kind of, you know, like, you know, but that's why it's like cycles, you know what I mean? I pray for my family, you know, kind of thing, but generational trauma, you know what I mean? So like I said, if you're in the process of healing and unlearning certain things, that is important. That's foundation. You know what I mean? And I'm very thankful, because God healed things internally, mentally, externally. You know what I mean? That it was a lot, you know, and it's like foundation strong. Like I said, I'm in the application process. You know what I mean? But whatever process you're in, or whatever you're going through, you know what I mean? Just trust the process, you know what I mean? Whatever, you can't pour from an empty cup, you know what I mean? So each step is important, you know, and like, you're important. You matter, you're of value, you're of substance. It's like, I feel like I like what Stephen Furtick said. It's like each person has a purpose. You know what I mean? And if you're alive today, you have purpose. You know? So, I wish you well. And I would pray and I'd hope that you find peace and clarity in the midst of whatever seemingly storm or situation or season you may be in. And yeah, I wish you well.